Okay. Hi. First, my apologies for the delayed release of this episode. Last week I I had the experience of contracting the norovirus, and I hope that you have never met this virus in person. I had 4 days of symptoms, losing all the liquids in my body, followed by 3 days of recovery, in which I rehydrate. I swear it's the sickest I've been in my life. I also lost my voice for 4 days due to the dehydration. Some of you probably think, well, it's an improvement. Yeah, maybe. If you do get this virus, be sure to get some quality electrolytes. Do not get the generic brand. Do not get the gas station brand. Your body will thank you for spending the extra money. I have been using a product called Liquid IV, and I could really tell the difference when I started using it versus when I was using the generic shit. So it's good to be back. Thanks for waiting. Barrel Full of Daryl. Season 1, episode 52, the final episode of season 1. And I believe season 2, I'm going to keep the same format, I guess, unless you guys have some recommendations. I have yet to get any recommendations from anybody, so I'll just do it my way. So during season 1, I have discussed over 52 movies and 60 musics, including one-hit wonders. Over 60 musics. And I'm hoping along the way you've learned some new shit and you were entertained. It's my goal. I don't think any of the episodes in season 1 were stinkers. My opinion. Okay, music, movies, mirth, as well as some other funky ass shit. I may take a sip of water here and every now and then. So, last week I asked the mystery movie quote, "To make soap, first we render fat." And Ian finally guessed it. Fight Club. Now here's a mystery music lyric for you. They call me the breeze, I keep blowing down the road. You may be familiar with that one, but do you know the original artist? And one thing I neglected to mention last week during the Steely Dan discussion is where in the hell did they get the band name Steely Dan? Well, it comes from a steam-powered dildo mentioned in the novel Naked Truth by William S. Burroughs. If you're not familiar with that book or this guy, give it a Google. Let's talk about some music. Music. I really like this Australian band. Their name has 4 letters, and it's not AC/DC. Kenzie covered that for me very well in a previous episode. Now, the band name starts with an I. Got it? That's right, INXS. And it's a phonetic play on the phrase in excess. Well, they formed in 1977 in Sydney, Australia. The band is composed of three brothers, Andrew Ferris, John Ferris, Tim Ferris, as well as Gary Beers, Kirk Pengilly, and frontman Michael Hutchins. Now, as with most of the artists that I discuss, they just burst on the scene with a fresh and unique sound. Yeah, I liked it from day one. Now their style was pub rock, which is an Australian rock and roll style, and it blends in funk and dance elements. I guarantee you, every one of their songs, you just about want to start dancing to it. So they released 11 studio albums between 1980 and 2010. They were nominated for Grammy Awards, MTV Music Video Awards, and ARIA Awards. That's the Australian Recording Industry Association. And they sold over 50 million records worldwide. The first hit was the song The One Thing from their album titled Shaboo Shubah. God, I love that title. Shaboo Shubah. Now, the music video for this song was their first to air on, at the time, a fledgling MTV network. And it certainly added to the success of their song. Now, over the following years, they had hits with songs Original Sin, Listen Like Thieves, What You Need, I Need You Tonight, Devil Inside, New Sensation, Never Tear Us Apart, Suicide Blonde, and Disappear. And most of their songs, unsurprisingly, were about sex. A bunch of young rock and roll guys. What else are you going to write and sing about? Awesome songs. Now I want to talk a little bit about the lead singer, Michael Hutchins. Holy shit, what a good looking man. Yeah, great stage presence. He was really a showman, and he lived for it. He lived for being on stage 2 hours a night. Also, an awesome voice. And in my opinion, he's the main reason for their big success. Unfortunately, in 1992, he was in an altercation in which his head hit a curb on the street. Yeah, he got punched or shoved or something. Now, this left him with brain damage, which led to depression and increasing aggression. He also lost his sense of smell. Imagine being that rich and famous, eating fine foods all over the world, drinking wine, no sense of smell. This completely changed him, changed his character. 5 years later, he was found dead in the Sydney Ritz-Carlton hotel room. The coroners ruled his death as suicide while depressed and under the influence of drugs and alcohol. In fact, he had hanged himself. Now, the band carried on without him, touring and playing their hits with guest singers. And in 2010, they recorded a tribute album to Michael titled Original Sin. Great band with a tragic history. As per, I've dropped some of their cool songs on the playlist I've got hanging around out there. By the way, season 2 will have a new playlist. And now a word from our sponsor. Well, it's still me. Don't have a sponsor message, but I did receive an email from the mayor of Scratch Ankle, and it's quite disturbing. Let me read it to you. Dear Mr. Darrell, I'm writing to let you know of a dire situation here in Scratch Ankle. We have had a recent increase in rabid raccoons that walk right into town acting all cocky and looking for pets, livestock, and, of course, humans. They are truly fierce, and our citizens have been told to shoot them on sight. We have declared a voluntary quarantine, and most folks are staying indoors, except to go to the Piggly Wiggly for toilet paper and other essentials. Also, the Alabama Department of Health and the CDC have intervened, but hell, they ain't got no guns. Also, a couple of days ago, Ricky Ray Bubba, despite being in palliative care, managed to wriggle out of his restraints and walk down the hall biting other patients on the neck. Now, security managed to wrestle him down and put him in a straitjacket. But some of our townsfolk here are claiming to see him shuffling and weaving down Main Street late at night and not wearing a straitjacket. So I think we got a bit of mass hysteria going on here as well. All this to say, Mr. Darrell, that it might be a while before we can provide your podcast with more sponsorship messages. Hopefully, once this rabidity subsides, you will hear from us again. And bye for now. That's the end of the email. Let's keep our thoughts. And if you pray, keep your prayers for the people in Scratch Ankle. Okay, movie time. movie. Last episode of season 1, so it's time for me to talk about a movie that's in my top 2. Fight Club. Now, this is a mindfuck movie. Scratch that. This is my number 1. Fight Club, number 1, right at the top. Now, there's a huge twist at the end of this movie, and I intend to spoil it. So, buckle up. Now, if you've not seen this film, I recommend that you go right now. Just put me on pause and go watch it right now. You'll be blown away. It is rentable on Prime Video. I think it's $4. Well worth the price. Especially if you like being mind-fucked. This movie is based on a novel of the same name written by Chuck Palahniuk. After seeing Fight Club for the first time, I read several of his novels as they came out, and they are all mind-fucky. Fight Club was his first published novel, and he wrote it while working as a diesel mechanic in Oregon. And after it was adapted, he could afford to become a full-time writer, thankfully. Now, he has a minimalist writing style, and his plots are often very dark. And I like it. I like it a lot. A Fight Club was directed by one of my favorites, David Fincher. His other movies include Seven, Panic Room, Zodiac, Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons. And you may recall that I've previously reviewed Seven and The Panic Room. By the way, Seven is in my top 2. So there you have it, Fight Club and Seven. Top 2, both by David Fincher. Thank you, sir. It was released in 1999, and it stars Brad Pitt, Edward Norton, Helena Bonham Carter, and Meatloaf. Yes, Meatloaf. He's a famous musician who released an awesome album back in 1977 titled Bad Outta Hell. Holy shit. Great album. But yeah, Meatloaf, he's a musician, and I think this may have been his first acting role. Huge guy, by the way. Maybe that's why they call him Meatloaf. So in this movie, Ed Norton, plays the unnamed narrator, who's an insomniac, and he's very sick of his job as a white-collar dude. His job, he works for a major car manufacturer, and he travels around a lot looking at car crashes in order to decide if a recall is warranted. Now, he lives in a high-rise apartment, and he spends his time decorating it with an IKEA catalog. So he's a yuppie, a consumer. He visits a doctor seeking meds for his insomnia, but the doctor says, nay, nay. Doctor says, chew valerian root, get more exercise. And if you want to see miserable, go to the support group for men with testicular cancer. Well, Norton takes this advice, and he goes to the group where he meets Bob, played by Meatloaf. Now, Bob is an ex-wrestler who did too many steroids. And like I said, he's a huge guy and pumped too many steroids. And due to his high testosterone levels, he was given estrogen treatment, and he's developed huge man tits. Huge guy, huge man tits. They just kind of wobble out in front of him. So in the meeting, they get to a point where they partner up and give each other supportive hugs. And Meatloaf grabs Norton. Meatloaf begins to cry. And he's done crying. He says, okay, your turn. Let it all out. And Norton, he's hesitant, but he does. He ends up crying. Big old sobby tears right there on the t-shirt between Bob's big tits. And that night, he sleeps like a baby. He has found his cure for insomnia. So he starts going to other support groups to keep it going. Cancer and all kind of shit. So one night he's at a meeting and he sees a girl, a lady, Marla Singer, played by Helena Bonham Carter, she started attending the group as an imposter as well. Now this infuriates Norton because he can't cry with her being present. He decides that they need to split up the support groups, which they do. So Norton, he ends up going out on a trip look at a car wreck, and on a return flight home, his person seated next to him is Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt. He's a soap maker. Hell, what a character. So when the plane lands, Norton goes home, only to find out that his apartment has blown up and all of his valued furniture, all of his life is laying out in the street, ruined. He's got nowhere to go. So he calls Marla from a payphone, quickly hangs up. Then he calls Tyler Durden, and they meet at a bar. After 3 pitchers of beer, they go out to the parking lot, and Tyler tells him that he can come stay with him under one condition, that Norton punches him as hard as he can. And Norton, he can't believe it. He's very reluctant. But he does. He punches Tyler, actually hits him in the ear. Tyler's, oh my God, what the fuck, you hit me in the ear, man. And then Tyler quickly punches Norton back right in the stomach. Big oof moment. And they end up fighting in the parking lot. And they get a certain amount of pleasure out of it, out of having done it. So they decide to do it again, which they do. Not in the same night, separate night. Now they do this regularly, and they attract crowds of men who also want to fight. So they start Fight Club and eventually move it into a basement below a bar. Dozens of men join, and the attendance increases. Tyler sees this, and he says, this group has really grown, which means a lot of you are breaking the first rule of Fight Club. These are the 8 rules of Fight Club. 1, you do not talk about Fight Club. 2, you do not talk about Fight Club. 3, if someone says stop or taps out, the fight is over. 4, only 2 guys to a fight. 5, 1 fight at a time. 6, no shirts, no shoes. 7, fights go on as long as they need to. And 8, if it's your first night, you must fight. Soon there are fight clubs popping up all over the nation. And Tyler transforms Fight Club into a group called Project Mayhem that commit acts of violence and vandalism to disrupt the social order. And all the members, they all live in Tyler's rundown house. This house, it's like a 3-story, dilapidated piece of shit house. When it rains, they have to turn off the electricity. It's just falling to pieces. You go to the basement, there's a foot of water down there. But that's where they all live. Free of charge, by the way. So, in order to join, the members must shave their heads and wear all black, which they all do. And they all contribute to making soap to fund their attacks. Let me throw this in here. I didn't make a note about this, but the line, To make soap, first we render fat. Where do you get this fat from? Well, they steal it out of dumpsters behind a liposuction clinic. Yeah, they climb over this barbed wire fence, jump into a dumpster. There's these big translucent bags, huge, of just human fat. And, Tyler Durden will throw one over to Norton. Norton catches it. Norton catches one and it breaks on him. So he's covered in this shit. But that's where they get the fat. And they kid about it, they're making money by selling rich women their fat asses back to them. So Norton, he has this job. He has an office that he goes to. And being a member of Fight Club, his appearance degrades over time. He stops wearing a tie. His white button-down shirt is no longer buttoned down. The tail's hanging out. Buttons are missing. And there's blood on some of his shirts, and he's got huge black eyes. His manager just cannot figure out what the fuck is wrong with him. And in one scene, Norton decides to go to his boss's office and be allowed to quit work, stay at home, and receive full salary and plane tickets. Oh, the boss says, "You're out of your fucking mind. No way." At this point, Norton starts beating the shit out of himself in the boss's office. And I mean, really just pounding on himself. Blood spraying, flying through a bookcase. Well, security arrives, and Norton is on his knees when they open the door, pleading with his boss to stop hitting him. He's got blood all over him, and he's put his hands on the boss, and there's blood all over the boss. And this is how Norton gets what he wants: stay at home, full pay, full salary, plane tickets. Now the natures, so this is the funding source for Project Mayhem now. They no longer have to make soap. And the nature of Project Mayhem's attacks increase to the point where they're making bombs where they once made soap. During one of the misadventures, Bob gets killed by the police, and Norton is distraught. Norton tries to disband Project Mayhem, but he finds out it's gone nationwide. Yeah. By the way, at this point, Tyler Durden has disappeared. He's no longer around. So Norton is he begins to search for Tyler. Says he's got to find Tyler. So he flies to numerous cities to track him down. It's at this point where the spoilers are going to creep in. If you keep listening, you will hear the twist ending and it will be ruined for you. You've been warned. So as Norton flies to various cities, he recognizes bars where fight clubs exist. He walks into them and asks if they have seen Tyler Durden. He's told repeatedly, no one talks about Project Mayhem. In one bar he goes into, the bartender looks at him and says, "Welcome back, sir." Norton gives him a weird look and asks, "Have I been here before?" The guy said, "Yes, sir, you were here just last week." Norton asked him, "What's my name?" The bartender says, "Is this a test, sir?" And Norton says, "No." He asked him again, "What is my name?" And the bartender says, "Tyler Durden." Boom. Well, the world starts falling out from under Norton, and he hurries back to his hotel room and he calls Marla. And during the let me say that he and Marla had a very love-hate relationship. I'll leave it at that. During the convo, he asked her, "What is my name?" Because she calls him Tyler during the phone call. And when he asked her, she says, "Tyler Durden, Tyler Durden, Tyler Durden." And I think it's at this point he blacks out. He blacks out. And when he comes to, the Brad Pitt Tyler Durden is sitting in a chair looking at him. And he berates Norton because he had made him promise to never mention the two of them to Marla. Then he goes on to say that the Brad Pitt Tyler Durden is a split personality of Norton's. And Norton had created him to escape his dreary life and be more of the man he wanted to be, like Tyler Durden. So Norton passes out again on the bed, and when he wakes up, he flies back home. He goes to the soap house. In it, he finds documents for numerous buildings that are to be blown up that night. Mostly banks, and the goal is basically to set credit to zero. All credit, set it to zero. So he's despised by this, and he goes out to try to stop it. And I'll just jump a little bit here. He ends up going to a very tall building, and he finds explosives in a van. He tries to disable the bomb, but Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden, stops him by basically beating the shit out of him and dragging him upstairs to the highest floor where he sits. Excuse me for a minute. Where was I? Where he sits him down and puts a gun in his mouth and says, 3 minutes until showtime. Let me say here that this is the opening scene of the movie as well. Norton with a gun in his mouth. He says, "When a gun in your mouth, you can only speak in vowels." Um, so they're on the top floor of this building. Tyler Durden has the gun. He takes it out of Norton's mouth so that they can have a chat. And Norton continues to debate with Tyler when Norton says, "If you're holding the gun, then I can too." And boom, all of a sudden, the gun is in Norton's hand. He puts the gun under his chin and threatens Tyler with suicide. Tyler's like, "Oh, yeah, right. You won't do it." Norton then takes the gun out from under his chin, puts it into his mouth, and points it backwards toward the back of his jaw, kind of out the side toward the back. He pulls the trigger. Holy shit, what a scene. Slow motion, gun firing, Norton's face distorting. Ugh. Awesome. Awesome. Then it shows Brad Pitt standing there with a hole in the back of his head and smoke coming out of his mouth. And then he disappears. So a couple of the Project Mayhem guys show up and they see Norton, Tyler Durden Norton, with his distorted face, and they are in shock. They're like, how is he still standing? They have Marla with him, and she runs over to him. He tells her and the men that he's okay, and he tells the men to leave them alone. So he and Marla stand at the window and watch as the buildings around them explode and crumble to the ground. End of movie. Now, this movie, like the movie Seven, has a lot of atmosphere and texture. It's one thing I like about a good movie, just a lot of good atmosphere. You're just submerged into it, you know? It's also bloody and it's gruesome, as is the book. And the cinematography you cannot beat it. It's amazing. Now, throughout this film, there are a couple of subtle hints throughout the film that Norton is actually Tyler Durden, but not enough of a hint to give it away, thank God. Also, Tyler uses a lot of aphorisms to get Norton out of his IKEA lifestyle, such as, this is your life and it's ending 1 minute at a time. The things you own end up owning you. It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. On a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to 0. We're working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. Yeah. Now, the soundtrack to this album was done by the Dust Brothers, who did the Beastie Boys album, Paul's Boutique, I think it was. And it complements the movie perfectly. Also in this movie, there's 2 of my favorite songs. When the Fight Club members are in the bar and they start walking downstairs into the basement, the song Going Out West by Tom Waits is playing loudly. Great song. I love it. And at the end of the movie, when Tyler and Marla are holding hands watching the buildings around them crumble, the Pixies song Where Is My Mind is playing. Very fitting. I'll add these 2 songs to the playlist. You know, I talked a lot about this movie, but, I really, again, only scratched the surface. I mean, there's just so much you can say about it. There's only so much you can say about it. You just got to watch the fucking thing. It's really that good. A lot of cool scenes, a lot of nuances, and I hope you're intrigued. I hope you go watch it. Word of the week. Kangaroo word. It's a phrase. Kangaroo word. It's a word that contains all of the letters of a synonym and in the correct order. Now, the kangaroo word is called a joey. Here are some examples. Masculine has the kangaroo word male. Destruction has the kangaroo word ruin. Astound has the kangaroo word stun. It's just a few examples, and hats off to Dustin, my friend, for this word of the week. Thank you, sir. Joke of the week. The phrases "I'm sorry" and "I apologize" mean the same thing, except at a funeral. Okay, here's another one. The doctor says to the patient, "I have good news and bad news." And the patient says, "Well, give me the good news first." and the doctor says your test results are back and you only have 2 days to live. The patient says, "That's the good news? What the fuck is the bad news?" The doctor says, "I've been trying to reach you for 2 days." Okay. Question of the week. Last week I gave you a bit of a math problem. Kind of an easy one, but a little tricky. 500 divided by 1/2 plus 50 equals what? And I told you it's not 300. So in your numerator, you got the number 500. Denominator, you've got the fraction 1/2 or 0.5. According to the rules of mathematics, when you're multiplying, when you're dividing a numerator by a fractional denominator, it's like multiplying the numerator by the reciprocal of the denominator. So what you're doing is you're saying 500 divided by 1/2 is the same as 500 times 2, 1,000. So the answer is 1,050. Easy peasy, huh? New question of the week. How many sides does a circle have? Here's another one for you. What can you put in a bucket to make it lighter? What can you put in a bucket to make it lighter? How many sides does a circle have? Thought of the week. Time flies like an arrow. Fruit flies like a banana. Think about it. Okay. Don't forget about my playlist floating around out there. Damn good music. Damn good music. Feel free to contact me by clicking on the send me a text button in the episode or directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. Also, feel free to contribute to my show. A few dollars a week, a few dollars a month. Not necessary. I appreciate you guys listening to me, and I hope you've enjoyed this season. You know, I've enjoyed doing it. Can't believe it's almost been a year. Thank you for your patronage, and please keep listening. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Let's get the word out. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in season 2. Bye for now.